Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, let's relocate our entire IT department to a new city. Tech support will not be relocated. Lady waiting over a year for TV box installation. I get the case. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Let's relocate our entire IT department to a new city. Tech support will not be relocated. The company in question no longer exists, and you'll understand why, but nonetheless, I will respect the rules and not name them. This isn't a single tale, but a series of small tales about how one company badly screwed up their relocation. I had started a new job as a senior software engineer at an ISP after it had been bought by someone who liked to buy companies, kill the unprofitable parts, and immediately resell the rest at a premium since it looked profitable. I'm sitting in the office one day when there's an emergency all-hands meeting and someone stood up and gave a presentation about how they were shutting down our offices. We all had to move to a business park in a major city 3 hours away. All software developers would have their relocation costs covered, but anyone else had to pay their own way. If you didn't relocate, you didn't have a job. The man asked if there were any questions. The very first question was, "Who are you?" Seems it was our CEO. No one actually knew him, and he hadn't bothered to introduce himself. I immediately volunteered for the relocation committee, and in that committee, I gave a presentation about sociologist William White and a study he did. Virtually all corporate relocations involve a move to a location which is closer to the CEO's home than the old location. White discovered this principle after an extensive study of Fortune 500 companies that left New York City for the suburbs in the 1950s and 1960s. They always had big, complicated relocation committees which carefully studied all the options and chose, coincidentally I'm sure, to move to within half a mile of the CEO's home in Danbury, Connecticut. White also showed that these companies all tanked after the relocation. The reason are obvious. With a huge relocation, you lose a lot of staff with detailed business knowledge, and the new staff repeat mistakes the old staff knew not to do. The company relented and agreed they'd pay for relocation for the accounting team, but tech support? They're a dime a dozen. We'll replace anyone who doesn't move. Big mistake. We relocate and immediately it becomes clear there's a problem. The CEO stopped by and asked me what I thought about the business park, and I replied we're well outside the city. People who want to live in X can't easily commute here. People who don't want to live in X won't want to work in a soulless business park close to a city they hate. I realized this was a bad thing to say and apologized. The next day I came into work, and there was a very nice bottle of single malt whiskey sitting on my desk. It was a gift from the CEO for being honest. That aside, we started having issues because we had very few tech support people relocate, so we temporarily retained the call center in the former city. Now we had to find tech support. Sure enough, no one wanted to work at this business park. Eventually, we found someone who ran a cable TV support center. We were an ISP. He knew nothing about technology, but otherwise, he had a solid background. So he was hired and immediately found that he couldn't hire experienced tech support people to work in this business park. No problem. We'll hire anyone who has passion for something. They'll learn on the job. How do you identify if they have passion for something? All candidates were given colored pencils and told to draw something they were passionate about. Some candidates just walked out. Those who remained had no tech skills but drew pretty pictures. The inevitable support calls came in. Why can't I FTP anything to my server? How do I set up DNS? What's HTML? It was a disaster and things were going poorly. However, we had our accounting team. Many of them had been with the company for years and could answer those basic questions. So for a while, tech support staff were answering basic billing questions and forwarding tech support calls to accounting. Eventually, accounting revolted and that got stopped. But the calls didn't. The calls kept coming and coming and coming. A third-level support person who stayed with us came up with an idea. Most questions were simple. So he created a FAQ as an image. He emailed it to all tech support staff and told them to set this as their desktop background, and when calls came in, minimize their windows and look for a question matching what the customer was asking. None of the tech support staff knew how to set a background image, so he had to go around and do this for all of them, and show them how to minimize their windows. So far, so bad. Things are going poorly and tech support is flooded with angry customers, call wait times were increasing, and morale was in the toilet. And then it got better. Calls slowed down to a trickle, tech support could handle the load, and at a company party, the tech support manager got an award for his great job in reducing the number of calls to tech support. Seems he approved a software package for creating a tech support website where customers could find their own answers. Shortly afterwards, he got fired for it. Apparently, this website required us to pay for every damned click. And the tech support manager had ordered developers to bury our tech support phone number deep within the site. Customers were clicking like mad trying to find that number, and we were getting charged for every click. Update: I forgot to mention the end result. The new owner got what he wanted. He sold off various parts of the company, including the company name. It was immediately snapped up by a competitor. The company was once known as one of the top ISPs in the country. By the time the name was sold, it turned out to be so worthless that the competitor couldn't use it. Lady waiting over a year for TV box installation. I get the case. So since April I've started working for a TV/broadband/phone company after being made redundant and work on the tech team. We work with anything from installations, troubleshooting and upgrading services. Basically, if you have a problem with any of those, I help you sort it. So it was 8 a.m. and the first call of the day is a lady who was absolutely furious. At first it wasn't clear what the problem was, but after reassuring her I wanted to help, and that I'd look at the notes on her account, and she can fill me in on what's been missed, she calmed down a bit. A year ago this lady paid over £100 to get a new TV box installed, only it had never been installed. From the notes and what the lady was telling me, every time an engineer went out they had an excuse as to why they weren't able to install it that day. "Oh, we don't have the right ladder, we aren't trained for this kind of install, we could try and access it from the other property, but we're not insured for that." Why this lady had been left hanging like this made no sense to me, and I promised her I'd get to the bottom of it. She already had TV services with us, but the upgraded box install was the problem, and she was also a carer for a family member, so had enough stresses. So I told her, "Don't worry about calling us, I will call you and text you updates." The next month was me giving her consistent updates, running around to managers and more experienced staff on install procedures to get the specific ladders and how to get the lady her money back, because I couldn't resubmit an install without taking a payment. There was no override. Eventually I figured it out. I called a specialist team to let them know about the property and have it marked so they knew exactly what equipment they'd need ahead of time. My manager got in touch with higher-ups who confirmed we could give her the money back, then I could agree the date. I called the customer and told her the situation. We put the wheels in motion, and I triple-checked the order had all the flags it had needed and updated her each week before the install to let her know it was still going ahead, and there were no delays. The day after the install I called her to ask her if everything had gone okay. She was so grateful and said the new engineers we sent were so lovely and made her feel validated in all the problems she'd had. She thanked me for helping her and said, "I wish I could meet you and give you a hug." I told her that I was glad to get her sorted and that knowing I'd helped fix things was more than enough for me. So whenever I have a bad day or a customer is yelling at me that I'm terrible at my job and don't know what I'm doing, which happens, I always think about this lady and how much what I did meant for her and her family.